Words will produce your thinking. Your thinking will produce your emotions or your feelings. Your feelings will produce your decisions. Your decisions will produce your actions. Your actions will produce your habits. Your habits will produce your character. And your character will bring you to your destiny. Now that's a basic sequence of how life works. But now watch this. Negative words will produce negative thinking. Negative thinking will produce negative emotions. Negative emotions will produce negative decisions. Negative decisions will produce negative actions. Negative actions will produce negative habits. Negative habits will produce negative character. And negative character will bring you to the wrong or negative destination. You've got to understand, folks, that everything starts with words. The Word of God will produce thinking that will line up with the Word of God. Abraham, or Abram before he was known as Abraham, God told him, get away from your father's house and get away from your relatives. I said, well, Lord, I thought that, is that love? You telling the man to leave his relatives? Well, I tell you why I told him to do that. Get away from those who are framing your way of thinking. Get out of that place where they're framing your thinking. Words will frame your thinking. So who are you hanging around? What are you listening to? What's framing your thinking? Are you allowing Mama and them, Pookie and them, and Shaquita and them to frame the way you think about things? Because folks, as a man thinketh, so is he. The way you think will determine if you're walking in the spirit or walking in the flesh. Because when you get down to the very bottom line, walking in the flesh is a way of thinking that opposes the Word of God. Walking in the spirit is a way of thinking that goes along with the Word of God. So words, the Word of God will produce thinking that will line up with the Word of God. And thinking that will line up with the Word of God will produce how you feel. Feelings and emotions that line up with the Word of God. And emotions that line up with the Word of God will produce godly decisions. And godly decisions that line up with the Word of God will produce godly actions. And godly actions that line up with the Word of God will produce godly habits. And godly habits that line up with the Word of God will produce godly character. And character is doing what's right because it's right, and then you do it right. Character is what people have come to expect from you. And you will never go above the level of your character. So godly habits produce godly character, and godly character will then produce a godly destination and bring you where it's supposed to be. Now, if you find that you're in a place where you're not supposed to be, just backstep. If you don't like your destiny, then change your character. If you don't like your character, then change your habits. If you don't like your habits, then change your actions. If you don't like your actions, then change your decisions. If you don't like your decisions, then change your emotions. If you don't like your emotions, then change your thinking. If you don't like your thinking, then change the words that you are hanging around that are framing the way that you think.